All right, what's up, y'all? We are live. Let me get everything set up. Looks like that's good. And hold on, I see some of y'all's in here already. Let me go ahead and get everything set up real quick. So we got StreamYard going. Bully Bread Kennels, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining in. WKR from the DMV, thanks for joining in. Joe Jackson. Bully Bread Kennels, thanks for joining in. About to get this going in just a second. Let's see, there's the topics. Now let me get two more tabs open and shut two other ones down. Give me just a second, y'all. Ooh, it's getting hot. And for some reason, my air conditioning does not reach this little pocket where I'm sitting at. Hey, Braxton, what's up, man? Thanks for joining in. About to get this going and expand this. This one we'll leave. Just give me just a second as you guys join in. And let's make this one the group. Come on. Let's see if I click on. There we go. All right, we're almost there. Bam, that's the group. Or is it? And there we go. So go, everybody join in as we get started. All right, so it does separate the group and my personal page. Betsy Spirit Rider, what's up? Thanks for joining in. And I think that's it. So topics of today. Is the bully game a hustle, business, or art? Ryan Sterling put in dominance versus rank. Another topic was the post that was up yesterday of the bully that wouldn't protect its owner from a dog attack. We'll get into that when it comes to protection training, civil drive, and why. And why drive the bully, why we came up with that concept a few years ago when it came to the bully community. And then per request, somebody wanted to touch on the double XL style dogs, red nose, blue nose, and are they just, marketing scams and things like that. So first, let's go ahead and jump into Ryan Sterling's topic, which was dominance versus rank drive. So basically, a lot of this kind of came up from yesterday when we were talking about there was a dog that was a bully that was attacked by a Belgian Malinois. Apparently, this was the second time the dog had been attacked by this Belgian Malinois. And the owner of the bully tried to break up the fight. The Belgian Malinois then turned on him, and the bully did nothing. Basically, from what we understand of the post that was in Giant XL American Bully Breed Group, the bully didn't do anything. Mr. J, what's up, man? Thanks for joining in. Junior Shangwei, thanks for joining in. Let me turn my office phone off real quick. Joe Jackson, what's up, brother? Thanks for joining in. Robert, thanks for joining in, bro. He's already talking shit. But so basically, let's go ahead and get into the first aspect of this, which is Ryan Sterling's topic of dominance versus rank drive. So to kind of make it quick, when it comes to dominance drive, dominance, a lot of people get the two confused. Rank drive, I should start with that, is a little more simple to understand. Rank drive just means that it is the dog wants to be at the top. It is a dog that wants to be at Almost no matter what the situation is, this dog wants to be the dominant dog in the situation. He is rank driven. Doesn't want to be at the bottom of the totem pole. And that's the best way to look at rank. Just look at it as a totem pole. So you got a pack of dogs or a group of dogs, whatever you got going on. And this is the dog that wants to be at the top of all situations. He is rank driven. He is, in all situations, he wants to be the top dog. When it comes to dominance, dominance can be more situational and tends to be more situational. So you have a dog that gets along with all the other dogs, but all of a sudden when it comes to food, it lets the meat out its bowl, things like that. But then all of a sudden when it comes to it's got its favorite spot on the couch, or it's toy driven. So when it comes to dominance, this dog wants to dominate certain situations. So when it comes to bullies, we know we want a low rank driven dog to prevent fights and dog aggression. We know we want a low dominance driven dog to prevent fights and prevent aggression when it comes to the standard of the American bully. So that's the difference between the two. Rank is about position. Dominance is typically about situation. A rank driven dog doesn't care about the situation. He does not want to be challenged. He wants to do the challenging. A dominance driven dog is not going to put up much of a challenge unless it's its situation. So, for instance, my Floyd is a very low rank driven dog, a low dominance driven dog, but he's extremely dog and animal aggressive. So he would let our other dogs eat from his food bowl, and actually only two of them. He would let them eat from his food bowl, things like that. Floyd didn't start walking around the house to, lifting up his leg to pee in the yard. So he was probably about 4 or 5 years old. There was no territorial drive, no dominance drive, no rank drive in him. He was just into fighting and hitting other animals that whether they be wild, we were hunting, whatever it was. But sometimes he became dominant driven over kills that they had, but he was not a dominant driven dog. He was not around the house. So we know with the bully, we want a low rank drive and a low dominance drive. Rank tends to show dominance drive. Dominance drive doesn't necessarily show rank driven situations. And that's pretty much the difference in that. So hopefully I answered that question. Let's see. We got somebody here from Texas on Facebook. I'll check on you just a second. Yeah, Northern Ed said the bully bitched out basically. Yes. And we're going to get into that whole story. So hopefully, Ryan Sterling, that answers your questions on the difference between dominance and rank drive. Another one that came up by request was double XLs, the red nose and the blue nose, and were they marketing scams? And the person who was talking about them considered, the phrase double XL, marketing scam. Blue nose, a marketing scam. Red nose, a marketing scam. The reason I say the bully community can't call the double XL a marketing scam or marketing scheme, however you want to phrase it, is because it's a dog that's intentionally bred. And it's a dog that has had its name, whether it was XL Pit Bull, double XL Pit Bull, since before the bullies. So back when you were dealing with Chevy dogs, you had your Eddington had his dogs, Whopper. You had all these large dogs that were pit bull crosses used for weight pull or just for looks. Some of them went the band dog route, but you had all these different crosses. So XL and double XL have always been here. When you took your average pit bull and crossed Amstaff and you crossed it to your average Rottweiler, your average Mastiff, your French Mastiff, or whatever, you tended to get an XL sized dog. But then there are other people who wanted a larger dog, whether it was protection or just for the looks of having a larger dog, or estate guardians, whatever it was back in the 80s, 90s, back in that period. Those dogs were called double XL pit bulls. We all knew they were mixed with other dogs. They weren't pure pit bull, but that's what they were. And so then the bully came along, and ABKC, and I think it was first registered in 2004, or the ABKC started in 2004 and really started getting behind the bullies. And those names and those dogs carried into the bully community, and with the name XL and with the name double XL. XL became a class for the larger dogs. Double XL never became a class. Some registries have tossed it back and forth of making it a class as of the last 5 to 10 years. So it's always been there. And there's always been people. I think the most popular person I can think of is Matt Meredith, who has actually won trophies that say, but I want to say from USBR, double XL, best double XL, whatever you want to call it, for whatever the class was that he was competing in that day. But Matt Meredith is one of the most popular I could think of. You have you just have a bunch of different lines that are all above 20, 23, 24 inches, whereas the XL is supposed to stop right between 20 and 23 inches for the males. So this is a dog that's always been here. It's not a marketing scheme when somebody says, this is what I intentionally breed, and I'm consistently getting this, and therefore I'm letting you know this is double XL rather than XL class. This is a bigger dog. When it comes to the red nose, and the person stated that was also a gimmick, basically a marketing scheme. The red nose, people like me who dealt with dogs for years, when you say red nose to me, I automatically think old family red nose. You're just saying red nose for short. Old family red nose, we know, is from the beginning of the pit bull, the Staffordshire bull terrier, and one of the whole world of dog fighting. And the old family red nose came from 5 clans in Ireland. And each of these clans, some of them had them a little taller, some of them a little shorter, some of them stockier, some of them more lean, but they were all red-nosed dogs. Well, they weren't a scam. These dogs were proven. They were proven dogs. Not only were they more tenacious than most of the fighting dogs back then, but the red nose was one of the only breeds on the planet, regardless of what breed, but it was one of the only dogs of any breed that you can do tight line breeding and still maintain structural characteristics and temperamental characteristics. Most dogs, something goes wrong. Well, with the old family red nose, nothing will go wrong. They do tight line inbreeding and line breeding, and the dogs maintain their a good structure. So when they came to America, all these dogs, all these fighting dogs were smaller. So when they came to America, they started breeding them to taller dogs. And a lot of people disagree with it, but you've also got Richard Stratton, who wrote a book on pit bulls, and he speaks on it too. When they got to America, America was trading with any and everybody. And during the middle of these trades, sometimes they would match dogs. So it would be there's pit bulls against Akitas and various other breeds, Chow Chows, various other breeds. And in the fight game, it was so intense in America because there were no laws and regulations. There weren't a bunch of rich people looking down on it. So they started crossing them. So one of the things that the pit bull needed was a little more range to fight various dogs and a little more stamina. So they would take the dogs and breed them to hounds. And because hounds were known for their stamina, especially if it happened to be an aggressive hound. So they would take them. Then they would take those litters, and those pups from the litter that tended to be more into their scent and to their scent drive and their hunt drive went back into the hounds. Those pups that tended to have a little more fight drive in them went back into the game dogs. And that way you washed out the hounds. Even if you look at Grand Champion Mayday, to this day, his offspring that are heavy line bred and inbred from Mayday, they still have a low ear set like a hound does. So check out Grand Champion Mayday when you get a chance to look at him and how he has that low ear set. When it comes to the blue dog, so you got all this going on. Remember, everybody's just breeding for winners. That's it, breeding for what they need. When it comes to the blue dogs, one of the things that a lot of people like to say the blue dogs there were no blue pit bulls. That's not true. The Irish had a lot of gypsies. And one of the dogs that was their favorite to fight back then was the blue paw. The blue paw traveled with the gypsies all through Europe and then eventually into America. We know for a fact some of these blue paw dogs came to America. Well, when you get to America, it's not about you being blue, it's about you winning. So therefore, during these breeding winter to winter, you lost the color blue because the color wasn't necessary. But if you go back to like Game Dog Journal and a lot of these periodicals from back then, you'll see advertisements of blue dogs. They didn't call them blue nose, but they let you know it was a blue dog. So the blue dog has always been here, just the color wasn't important. Then you fast forward to the 70s, dogfighting becomes a felony. It's looked down on by everybody. Animal rights, activists are getting more control and more power through the 70s and the 80s and on into the 90s. And then color and appearance starts to become popular. But what opened the door for that was the AKC. When the AKC came along and adopted the pit bull, changed the name to the American Staffordshire Bull Terrier, to the American Staffordshire Terrier, to give credit to the Staffordshire Bull Terrier, which was its original ancestor, they didn't allow the red nose to become a part of it. One of the reasons they didn't allow the red nose is because, one, they were extremely game, but two, they didn't want people to have a litter of dogs that automatically, for some strange reason, are game as hell and maintain their structure even through inbreeding. And then all of a sudden you pop out a litter of dogs and you register this red-nosed dog with the AKC as an American Staffordshire, and you can breed them for color and still game this. And now all of a sudden this dog has a brother who on the weekends is winning fights. AKC wanted no parts of that. So therefore back then they didn't allow the red nose. If I'm not mistaken, they do allow red nosed dogs now as Amstaffs, but back then they didn't. So the red nose has never been a gimmick. It's never been a marketing thing. The blue nose didn't start out that way. Then we got to the 80s and things became about the AKC opened the door, the show ring opened the door, and the Amstaff concept opened the door for the dogs to not be about performance, but to be about looks, all about aesthetics. So now color becomes a big deal. Color schemes, color patterns become a big deal. And then the blue nose takes off and it becomes popular. Instead of being called a blue dog, it's called a blue nose, and it becomes popular as a working dog, but a more of a non-fighting dog because now it's not being bred to the best of fighters. It's being bred to the healthiest and the most driven of other blue dogs. And that's where you get Greyline, who took off and created the dog we all know and is in most of our blood, Juan Gotti, who then started Gotti Line and Gotti Line to Razor's Edge, and bam, now we are here where we are today. But so I wouldn't ever look at red nose as a gimmick. Did blue nose, was there some gimmick to it? Yes. But for the most part, it was letting you know what you were getting, not necessarily a gimmick. And then when it comes to the XL, the double XL, like I said, that is a style of dog that has been here for longer than the American Bully's been called American Bully. And heavy went into the American Bully when you start going into your pedigrees and the dogs that were being used. Now, there are some people that say the double XL should be considered a different breed. I fully understand that concept. It is hard to maintain a dog over 24 inches that doesn't carry mastiff traits. So you tend to get a longer snout, you tend to get a longer body, and we know the American Bully wants it to be more compact. But you can't have this dog in your lineage and then try to say it isn't what it is. So there are Rottweilers that are taller, leaner, longer. This is what every breed. Just because a dog is built different doesn't mean he is not that breed. And that's why you have breed type, which lets you know that this is a Rottweiler, and then you have the written standard, which is the goal for you to aim for to win shows, but also there to kind of keep the dog somewhat balanced. So we all have a reference point to turn to. And then that's pretty much that with that. Let me check out the comments real quick. Pitbull Bell said, hey, FB isn't letting me comment on live feed today. It should be, because other people are commenting and I'm about to get to there. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Japan still matches the Tosa against the game dogs. Yes, they do. But in my opinion, gameness, people look at gameness like that's the end all be all. Gameness is just a strategy. So you had dogs that were more agile. Used to call them dancers. And they used to call them dancers. And they were more agile, used a lot of movement. Well, sometimes those dogs were whoop game dogs. You had dogs that were more bulldogish. more of a powerful style. Sometimes they would whoop a dog that was game. Now, if you had a dancer and a more bulldog, doggish style fighting dog, you always wanted to get some of those game dogs in your blood because the game dog doesn't quit. So, but these are all strategies. Not quitting was a strategy. So that way my dog can get beat up till your dog tires out and then my dog can go for the win. All these things were strategies. They weren't the end all be all. So game dog does mean fighting dog, but it also gameness was a strategy for the win just as much as the dancer or the dog that held the ear or went for the muzzle or went. These were all just different strategies, and some of these dogs did these strategies genetically. And that's you, Belinda. I didn't even realize that. What's up? Let's see. Pitbull Bell says most of my game dogs had low ear sets or half to full prick ears. Exactly. The half to full prick ears pulling from the white terrier, which is the bull terrier. Exactly. So, and the white terrier is what started these dogs plus the bull terrier. So when you get that ear set that sits more up higher on the head, you're looking at a lot of terrier in the dog. Even if that dog has been bred for more of the bulldogish traits, that's a terrier. The medium set is where your bulldog tends to be a lot of. So you can look at your American bulldog or even your English bulldog for those references. When you start getting that ear set to the side, like Mayday line dogs, you have to kind of wonder, were these some of the dogs that had a hound influence and then just went back into the pit bull breeding? Yeah, I recognize you. I saw your profile pic pop up. And so what's up? Thanks for joining in. Let's see who else is on here. Showtime Bulls, thanks for joining in. Northern Edge, thanks for joining in, brother. Yeah, the bully had bitched out during the little week, and we're gonna get into that. Braxton said Mayday was a bad mofo. Yes, he was one of the best. And if I'm not mistaken, Mayday was Rom. He was Register of Merit, so he also gave offspring that were some of the best. Let's see. So we did dominance. We did the whole XL thing. Again, you can't really call it a gimmick when somebody is intentionally breeding it and using that second letter X to let you know this is what I got. It's not like the rest. Now, you know what? Let's go ahead and get into the post. So there was a post made yesterday, and a guy's bully was attacked by a Belgian Malinois twice. The second time, the Belgian Malinois turned to attack him, and his bully didn't do anything. So a person made a comment about it, a second post about it. Actually, it was Jason McGee made a second post in the group stating that, what are we breeding when we're taking these bull-bred dogs and your bull-bred dog is allowing another dog to attack you and not defending you? And this is why we've always pushed the whole concept of drive the bully. Well, when I made that comment, there was another person who responded to my comment saying that this has nothing to do with drive. Drive doesn't mean that the dog will protect you. Drive means everything. And this is what I try to get the bully community to understand. Drive doesn't mean high energy. I had a bull lurcher that would hunt coyotes. She was she was bull lurcher lab mix. She would run down coyotes, jackrabbits, rabbits, coyotes, raccoon. She would run them down and kill them on her own. Bobcats, high drive dog. At home, she was laid back. She was my wife's best friend. She was a laid back dog. Never ran crazy acting in the house, you know what I mean? But she was still a high driven dog. We had a guy that had, who's known in the community, had a dog that, or had the offspring of one of his popular dogs, but was driving him crazy. So when he called me, he was like, I got something you want. I'll give it to you for free. He's just a driven dog. Well, when he described the dog to me, because the dog is climbing fences and all that stuff. Well, the dog's kept in a kennel. He's not used for anything. So the truth is, you don't really know his drive. He's just a hyper dog. We don't want a hyper dog in our breeding program for bullies. We want a driven dog, and they are different. And that's what the bully community has to understand, that drive and hyperness are not the same thing. Drive on an intelligent dog understands place and time and knows when I want it to do something, and then we'll go out and do it. And then when we get and has a high drive and propensity to do it. Um, when I get the dog home, it's a totally different mentality. Some of you heard me talk about how I had a dog that would kill raccoons, anything she came across. But when my daughter's hamster got loose in the yard, she picked it up, scratched at the front door, and didn't harm it. She dropped it on the front door for me to pick up and put back away. So drive doesn't mean aggression. It just means the desire to do what comes with whatever that instinct is. Doesn't mean, and it doesn't mean that the dog is going to protect you unless it has a high defensive drive. So when we say drive the bully, what we are pushing is for the community to start understanding the drives that make up their dog's temperament. You have your dog's personality, which is your dog's temperament. That temperament is made up of a bunch of different drives: food drive, sex drive, dominance drive, rank drive, play drive, prey drive, anything that you could think of that triggers a dog. And then each of those drives have a set threshold. So we know in the bully community, a dog is, and there is no dog on the planet that is at zero. Most people just can't figure out how to trigger it, or if the dog has a low threshold, and most people don't, if they can trigger it, don't really know what they're looking at. But we have to learn to look at temperament and drives and the threshold of these drives. They are a phenotype. They are not a genotype. It is what is seen. The problem is that the average breeder nowadays over the last 20 years is extremely inexperienced when it comes to dogs in general. They might know all the genetic codes and who's the best vet to give you AIs and all this other stuff, but they're very experienced when it comes to just what makes up a dog. And therefore, we end up losing the ability to see those things that are more difficult to see. Temperament is not as easy to see as color. Temperament is not as easy to see as structure. So I laugh when I see people say, "Oh, his dog's got a high rear. He's just breeding and he's kennel blind." But if you don't know anything about drive, then you're kennel blind too. And the majority of the bully community, when you listen to them speak on drive, they are kennel blind, because this is something there for you to see. You just haven't learned or taken the time to learn how to see it. And then eventually when you can see it, you start testing it to see where the thresholds are. But it's all based off of phenotype. And so when you got a dog that not only is it getting beat up, but when you jump in to break it up, now all of a sudden this dog is letting you get attacked. That is a dog that has a low fight drive. It has a low defensive drive. Defensive drive is what makes a dog defend itself and defend its pack and defend its territory. It also has a low civil drive. Civil drive is a term used in the protection world for dogs that will, and it's the protection world's way of accidentally admitting that they do a whole lot of fancy training with dogs that won't do shit in a real live situation. Civil drive means in a real situation, this dog will do something, and he doesn't have to be agitated. So if a person is walking up to you, and people need to think of it this way. Most times when somebody is robbed, the person doesn't start off 10 yards away with a bite sleeve saying, "Hey, I'm about to rob you. Here I come," to get your dog agitated. They walk up to you slowly, and then they make their move. They look like they're peaceful when they make their move. A dog with a high civil drive means he'll bite anybody. A medium, well-balanced civil drive means as soon as that person makes an aggressive move towards you, that dog is going to snap. That is what you call civil drive. And we have lost that in a lot of breeds. Even a lot of our protection breeds have lost that ability to be able to look at a situation. You don't have to be aggressive, but I know I don't trust you, and bam, go for it. Or we have the extreme, which is just a dog that's going to bite anybody no matter what. When we talk about drive the bully, what we are talking about is manipulating the drives that make up your dog's temperament, being aware of them. You don't have to reach the ABKC standard for temperament by just breeding lazy dogs. You can have prey-driven dogs, and they can still get along with other dogs. How do you think hounds hunt in packs? You can have slightly dominant dogs, and they can go to the dog park. They're just not going to allow themselves to be dominant. And when you start playing around with this and studying it and understanding it, learning to see it, and then manipulating it in your breedings, That's when you're truly breeding for temperament. Some people had an issue because I said, if I've got a dog that will not attack another dog to protect me or human, we're not breeding that into our program. We're just not going to do that, because I look at a dog that bites his owner the same way I look at a dog that won't bite to protect its owner. It's a problem. And the more you breed along those lines, the more you lose intelligence. Even like saying we're going to breed prey drive out of these dogs. For what? You can have dogs that get along with humans, get along with babies, get along with other dogs, but still have a high prey drive. Like I said, the hound is the perfect example of that. The dogo is the perfect example of that, designed to hunt in a pack with a high prey drive. When you start to diminish the prey drive on a predator, you are now losing the foundation of what this animal is as a species. You will start noticing at the same time, not only do you lose intelligence because the dog is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, and doesn't have the instinct to do it, you are also going to lose health. You're going to lose structure. A dog with prey drive gets up and looks for things. It searches for things as its body is developing. So when you're wondering why do we have all these stiff stifles and weak pasterns, and well, I can look at when I with American bullies and see them as puppies, especially when you guys post videos of your dogs at like 8 weeks old, 6 weeks old. There's a huge difference between the way your dogs are moving and looking around. When I hear your wife yell your name in the background, but the puppies don't even look up to see where that sound came from. I'm looking at all these things when I see your videos that you post on Facebook. And what we're doing is we're losing alertness. We're losing awareness of time and space. We are losing intelligence with our dogs, and especially with the bull bred breeds that are designed to just be designer breeds. And all designer breeds are losing them. So we have to start thinking they don't have to get out there and work. That's not what, when we push drive the bully, that's not what it's about. If you choose to, cool. But what they do need to be able to do is have a purpose drive, meaning that when I, as the owner, say, I want to raise you to do this, you have the desire to do it. And we're losing that when it comes to bullies. Let me check some of the comments. Let's see. Belinda said, I can't lie. Belgian Malinois are a very different type of dog, especially if it's poorly trained. Yes, a Belgian Malinois is extremely driven, but also an extremely hyper dog. So, which are two different things, but it's got both of them. And it works to its benefit. She said, hell yeah, my shorty bull thinks she's 100, and let's all new females who's boss laugh out loud. Exactly. She lets them know who's boss. And if you want that, that's cool. But if you want to breed it down, it's better to have to breed a temperament down than it is to have to put more temperament in. And right now, because like I said, a high driven dog is going to be intelligent because that drive enables it to do things and think in the heat of the moment. When you start breeding down these drives, you start losing those things. Let me go ahead and check some of the other comments that we may have. Looks like there's none on here. Let me reset it and refresh that one just in case. And let's see. How did Lincoln get so tall off the Alapaha? Because there's something else in there, Betsy. There's something else in there in those lines. And so you can have the Alapaha and then Lincoln's bred with something else, and then or Lincoln's ancestry has something else in there. And then you cross those two things, and next thing you know, you get a taller version of the dog. So there's got to be something else in there. Let's see. Do you mean that literally? Because I'm not sure what that's about. Dogs are hunters, predators, social scavengers, opportunists. Exactly. Opportunists. What does that mean? Intelligence. So when we start breeding these traits out of our dogs, we're also going to lose intelligence. The same intelligence that the circus uses to get a dog to jump through hoops is needed for you to train these dogs. And when you start breeding down the drive in these dogs, you start losing you start losing the intelligence overall. Let's see. And another thing I did want to touch on, protection training. Understand this when it comes to protection training. Protection training is pretty much, hold on, let me make sure I didn't lose anything. Um, Oh, what I was going to speak on, the TOSA being used, there are a lot of countries that don't like America, and the pit bull represents America. So the reason they'll take the TOSA to a lot of pit bulls that aren't truly game, they just might have a high fight drive, but they're not necessarily game. A lot of that is done to make us look bad here in America. And you're starting to see more and more countries make sure they're recording their Kangles, their TOSAs going against these dogs. What they try to hide are those videos of the TOSAs and the Kangles going against that 50, 60-pound game dog, 70-pound game dog, and then they're losing. Those videos rarely make it to the internet, but they do take place. The other thing people have to remember, a lot of people try to say, oh, there's no such thing as a 60-pound game dog. That's not true. Mayday was matched at 80 pounds a couple times. What is it? I can't think of his name right now, damn it. But he was matched against, what was the dog's name? Dum Dum. But he was matched against Dum Dum at 80 pounds. You know what I mean? You had large game dogs. You know, now I haven't seen too many matches from back in the day, 100 years ago, 60 to 100 years ago, that are over 80 pounds. But you did have American Pit Bull Terriers being matched at 80 pounds. And it's well documented and well recorded. Let's see. Okay, that was at somebody else. But so these are all, yes, the catch weight. And so for it to be at a catch weight, you know, we're not going to do this at a weight where my dog's out of shape. So that means when these dogs was on the chain, their chain weight was even heavier. You see what I'm saying? It's not like you're just going to overfeed them for a match that's coming up. You're better off turning down the match than losing your money. You got to remember, these dudes were fighting these dogs trying to make money off of it. So they're not going to do something that loses. Let's see. Last topic was, so we touched on civil drive, protection drive, drive the bully, and what that's about. But yeah, so you will see people from time to time that want to hate on us for what we push when it comes to drive. And no, the first they try to accuse us of trying to turn bullies into working dogs. No, we weren't. We wanted to have bullies that can work and have the desire to work, but it doesn't have to be what it's doing. We got accused of trying to turn bullies back into game dogs. It's not what we were doing at all. Drive the bully is what we push, meaning to pay attention to temperament and the drives that make up temperament, and then eventually the thresholds that make up those drives. Last topic, is the bully game a hustle, a business, or an art? We all know breeding is an art form. You know, it does take creativity, it takes logic, takes science, takes all these things, but it's a lot of gambling and some guesswork, you know, educated guesses, but things don't always turn out. So there's a lot of creativity attached to breeding that makes it an art. With the bully game, what I notice more and more is that it tends to become a hustle. Even if you look at it, there was a point at which you can tell in the history of this breed, especially when it came to Razor's Edge, Dave Wilson and a lot of those guys were trying to actually get a good-looking dog, a well-structured specimen. We know when it came to the Gotti line, we know when it came to Gray line, they were more looking for a blue, well-driven dog that was well-structured. We know when it came to Gotti line, people just started, and some of those people probably didn't have nothing to do with Gotti line. They just started taking the name. But we know it was about size, big head, big muscle. And we started losing structure. And then all these dogs became one breed, the American Bully. And things kind of got lost from Dave Wilson and the whole Elite Edge and Razor's Edge concept. And then all of a sudden it got lost. And now we talk a good game that Razor's Edge was talking back then. But a lot of people, you know, they'll jump on Facebook. And that's why I say this game has become kind of a hustle. I think with the registries, there are things that are placed before the dog, and those things tend to be money. and what the masses are into, what's the demand at the time. It's a business the minute you start making money, the minute you start marketing, promoting your dog, it is a business. And in a sense, the art gets lost. And because the art gets lost, it makes it okay to not know nothing about temperament and breed dogs. We have a lot of people who aren't experienced with dogs whatsoever, breeding any breed. Most times you have a new breed is people who have bred other breeds that get involved with that new breed. In the bully community, we have a new breed, and these are new breeders getting involved with a new breed, and it just takes things downhill. And that's not to knock the new breeders, because some of y'all study and ask questions. And you, speaking of that, those people who I'm supposed to hit tonight, I will hit you back at the same time. We just doing the live right now, but I will get to you, because I know some of y'all are probably looking at it like he's supposed to hit me back in 30 to 40 minutes. I'm going to be hitting you, but we are losing the art of what this is all about. But you do have new breeders. When I first got into this about 5-6 years ago, and my cousin and I, we breed slow. Thrower bullies breed slow. We don't do a whole lot of breedings, quick breedings. We are very methodical when it comes to what it is we're trying to do and get to where we're trying to get to. But when I first got into the community, all the new breeders coming in were just looking for the first popular person they could learn from and get a little bit of clout with. And they were looking for the fastest dog and the biggest names they could get. They didn't care about, the structure of the dog. Now, when I look at the community, I'm seeing more and more new breeders that are trying to learn. So I do think that is a positive thing. What I'm noticing is more of the drama in the community comes from people who got in 5 to 10 years ago, 5 to 10 to 15 years ago. And that's where a lot of the drama, that's where a lot of the messed up dogs are still being produced and still being put out there for breeding. But when you look at a lot of these new breeders, they are somewhat removing the hustle aspect and focusing more on the business aspect and the art of breeding, because breeding is just like boxing. It's a sweet science to it, but it's still an art. It's still an amount of creativity that comes with it. Let's see. Let me get to some comments. Belinda said, hell yeah, watch what I do with the South African Boar Bell I got. Yeah, that's nice. I love the Boar Bell. And there's a couple people that I know that of Eric Lawton of, I forget what the name is that he runs, Battlebred Canines. He got a nice Boar Bell. There's a couple people, and I actually plan on doing an interview with Eric. I just haven't figured out how to apply it to our community, but I do plan on doing an interview with him. Mr. J said this dude posted his puppies, and the post said, you didn't put what it said. Let's see. WKR K9 said it's a hustle. Why are some kennels advertising 6-week-old pups and getting stud lock-ins? Exactly. It is a hustle. There's dogs that are dying and at 3-4 years old, and people are commenting, oh, rest in peace. I'm so glad I got a puppy off of him. I spoke on this last week. So now I can, continue his blood. Why are we continuing the blood on dogs that died early? Because it's a hustle. The dogs were popular. It's a hustle. So nobody cares about that. If I know a dog died early, and if I get a dog from you, and all of a sudden I start breeding that pup off of your dog, and then you come back and you say, my dog just died at 4 years old. Me personally, I'm going to hit up the people that I sold pups to off of that. Even though your dog was just their grandfather, I'm going to hit up the people that I sold pups to off of that, and I'm going to let them know, hey, this is the situation. You might want to get your dog health tested. Because here's the other thing. A lot of these people, their dogs are dying, and they're not being honest with us about what the dog died from. Died from heat exhaustion. Okay, well, what were you not doing with your dog that it got so hot that the dog died? That's a process. Heat stroke is a process. 1, the heat, and then 2, the dog having anxiety because it can't get itself to calm down. It can't get its temperature to drop. Those 2 things coming together as a process. Then when they get together, it's a process. So what was your dog going through, and what were you not doing with your dog prior that caused the dog to die? My dog got bit by a rattlesnake, some of them will say. And that's why the dog died. Or I wasn't paying attention. He jumped in my pool and he drowned. A lot of people are lying to us about why their dogs died because they don't want us to check on why their dog died. So if you got a dog and we got a dog off of your dog, and that dog died in 4 to 6 years, at 4 to 6 years old, shit, I ain't gonna lie. Anything under 7, 8, at least the Great Dane and some large breeds live between 8 to 10 years. But if it's dying early, I'm not doing no rest in pieces and no angel wings and all that stuff until I get my dog health tested now. Now I'm guaranteed getting my dog health tested because I need to know what is in there that might cause my dog to die. And if there's something in there, the other thing is all breedings are with that dog are stopping until I can figure out what's going on. But these dogs are dying at 3, 4 years old, from XLs all the way to exotics. And we're blaming it on the heat because it happened to take place in the summer. But nobody's coming back and saying, but I did get the dog health tested. This is the deal. It legitimately was a heat stroke. They're not coming back with those vet papers. If you can come back with those vet papers that say that, then guess what? Those puppies are still valuable in the dog world. In the bully world, they're still valuable no matter what because you had a hype name. Let's see. Belinda said, that's how it should be. I don't either. It took me 8 years to make Willow. See, and that's what I'm saying. We got dogs that are 6 months old. And like Mr. J said earlier, I think it was Mr. J, people are locking in stud feeds. Dog 6 months old and you locking in stud feeds. The dog's a year old. You don't know nothing about his temperament. And we locking in stud feeds. All you got is pictures. People like to diss DDK9. But one thing the DDK9 does, I can jump on YouTube and find all kinds of videos of DDK9 that show their dog's temperament. With kids, with things like that, in heated situations, being pressured and being disciplined. There are other breeders out there that are showing the same things with their dogs that show you the drive level of the dog. But most of these dogs we're seeing a good front end pick. We have no idea what the rear looks like. If you look real close, you can kind of see it. It's a little higher than the head. The feet are hitting in grass. And we're getting stud feeds off this 6, 7, 8 month old puppy. So this community has become an extreme hustle. Let's see. Belinda said puppy mills is what it is when you have people advertise at 6 weeks old and sell pigs at birth and end up selling everything and more than 5 to 7 litters a year. I agree. 5 to 7 litters is a lot. But because they got a big facilities, we don't look at them as a backyard breeder or a puppy mill because they got a big, nice facility. But they are backyard breeders. I will tell you, my opinion of a backyard breeder is somebody that doesn't care about the traits that make up a dog. And there's 2 traits that make up a breed. There's 2 traits that make up a bloodline. And that is the temperament and the appearance of the dog. A breed is defined by its breed type. That breed type encompasses the look of the dog and the temperament. When you want to make a bloodline, that means within this breed, I have my own look and my own temperament. That is how you create a bloodline. So when you get breeders, they don't have to go for a bloodline. I know some true dogmen that have never gone for a bloodline. They just match traits and that's that. And all they're looking for is success. But when you have breeders that only breed for look, because that's popular, you're a backyard breeder, you're a puppy mill. When you have breeders that don't include temperament in their thought process when they're breeding, or they just try to shut down all drive levels, make sure I got a lazy couch potato dog. I don't care how many shows you win. You are breeding along the same concept of puppy mills and backyard breeders. And that is why a lot of breeders who are called backyard breeders because they're breeding dogs in their backyard rather than a kennel are 10 times better breeders than these dudes that have a full-fledged, expensive facilities. They got, the lights, and you should try to The more dogs you have, the more you need to have the facility. But how many dogs can you have and then put in the time? I can tell you right now, the most dogs that I've ever owned and put in work understanding those dogs, keeping them in good condition, feeding them, pressuring their temperament, and the different drives that are making up their temperament is 4. And I'm pretty damn good when it comes to dogs, but that's the most I've done at one time. Where I'm looking at litters and I'm saying, okay, by the time of 6 weeks old, I can tell you right now, these pups are going to be better for hunting. These pups are going to be better for protection. Um, in order for me to do all that, I know I can do that at four dogs. I know I can do that at 2 to 3 litters all at once. When it gets to 5 dogs, I can't say that I can give you that commitment. I can't say that I can give my program that commitment. So when I see a breeding program and it's got 10, 15, 20, 30, 80 to 100 dogs, you can't be putting in that time. It's impossible. Now, here's a shortcut. And I bring up Keelan Nelson as an example in the bully community. Keelan knows the temperament he's getting off of Zulu. Because you have a bloodline or a dog that's got strong genetics and is giving you a certain temperament and a certain look, and you're getting that within your consistently with your males and your females as you breed those males and those females through the line breeding and the inbreeding. When you get close to having a bloodline or have a bloodline, you can start taking on more dogs because now you've got a consistency in your program. But when you're still trying to breed out high rears, you got lazy couch potato dogs, but you got 30 of them, you're full of shit when you start talking trash to other people on Facebook about how great your program is or about how crappy their program is. Your program is just as crappy. You just happen to start off with better dogs than the person you're talking about. But if that person is listening to somebody like me as a new breeder, or they already come in as a new breeder and they already know how breedings work, and there's other people in here, Belinda's another one that they can listen to. There's a lot of people in here that they can talk to, and I'm just pointing out the people who are in here right now. But when you start getting involved, Gary Moore, and you start asking these people, and don't go rating these people right now because I accidentally said their names, so I'm not going to say no more names. But when you start listening to the people who are experienced when it comes to breeding, when it comes to the species, I don't care how new you are, you're going to pass up most of the people who are been doing this for 5-10 years and they still got high rears. They still got sway backs. They still got easty westy. They still got lazy dogs that they're claiming to have good temperament just because it hasn't bitten a baby or attacked another dog. And that also includes these show breeders from champions to grand champions. Most of them don't talk to Fred Duran. Fred Duran pushes the standard like it's biblical. But talk to Fred Duran about things outside of the standard. His concept when it comes to breeding. He might jump on Facebook because it's the easiest thing to see going wrong, which is and talk about structure. But have a conversation with Fred Duran about the temperament he's also looking for when he created Dooley. And he gets it. He understands it. He just may not be talking about it. And some of us who are experienced breeders make the mistake of now talking about things because to us they come natural. You know what I'm saying? It's like they always say, the best teacher not only knows what they're talking about, they know how to explain it. And they also remember to explain it. Those are 3 different factors. The average one of us who knows what we're doing when it comes to breeding, we know it, but we don't know how to explain it because we've been doing it. Or we know how to explain it, but we don't necessarily remember when to. That's why I stopped. If you notice, I stopped doing these lives where they were thought out ahead of time and started doing them to where you guys are bringing up things, I'm bringing up things, and it just becomes a conversation because it helps me remember things. If I try to type out and make different points of what I'm going to bring up in a live, I'm going to leave something out. Now, I'm also going to leave something out in this format but at least it's more natural and I have a higher chance of remembering things because I'm going back and forth with you guys in the comments and things like that. Let's see here. Mr. J said, I hit send too quick a post of new litters, and the post said, I don't know what I'm looking at. Can you help pick my keeper? I know what you're talking about. Okay, I get what you're talking about. But see, when that's something as a new breeder to take the hustle out of this, talk to the more experienced breeders. When you got a litter on the ground, you've never bred dogs before, you're in the bully game, you got a litter on the ground, hit up these experienced breeders. Raul, I said I was going to stop naming people. All right, but that's another one with QB and K. Hit up these experienced people. Some of us are going to charge you for that consultation. I don't think there's anybody that's charging anything that's above 60, 70 bucks for those consultations by the hour, unless you're dealing with more training and in-depth things. But there are a lot of breeders you can hit up that aren't going to give you advice based on you coming to their kennel, because a lot of these breeders are going to look at your dog and say, you know what, this is the only problem I see. I got a dog that'll fix that, though. So go ahead and breed it. Just hit me up when my male is ready to stud out to you. Matter of fact, I'll give you a discount since you hit me up and ask for advice. I'm trying to help your program. They full of shit. A breeder should be able to give you advice without pointing you in a direction unless you ask for that direction to what kennel. Now, if I've got what you need, then I'm going to say me, this guy, that guy. You go ahead and you make your choice. But especially if you paid me to consult you. But don't get caught in that trap of breeders trying to get you under their wing. Because if you're under somebody's wing, again, you need to know who's hustling, who's doing this as a business, and who's doing this because it's an art to this. And when it becomes business, it becomes hard to tell who is business minded, but also in it for the art of the breed, bettering the species, and who's doing this because, and you see the business, but it's not about the art, it's about the hustle. You don't want to get caught up with people who are doing it for the hustle because they're going to try not to let you know that. The internet has caused some people to be so blatant and ignorant in their approach to things, they may not mind letting you know that this is a hustle. But if you're going to tell me this is a hustle for you, okay. But then I want to be talking to somebody who has nothing but the best of dogs. So they have nothing to worry about as long as they keep it. You bought 5 of the best dogs you could have bought. They all have great structure, and you paid the money for those dogs so you could keep it as a hustle, and you're going to stay within your yard. Maybe I'll listen to that person, but again, it's hard to take something that serious and it only be a hustle to you. There's nothing wrong with being at the top of this game and making the most money and making more money than everybody else. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with buying a Ferrari or whatever you might buy because you have marketed your dogs. As long as you're still learning and as long as you are doing this to better your yard. A lot of people talk about, I'm here to better the breed. I don't really care what you're here to better when it comes to the breed. Just let me know that you're trying to better your yard. That's what I care about if I'm going to talk to you, if I'm going to consult you, if I'm going to get a dog from you, whatever it may be. I want to deal with people who are trying to better their yard. If everybody is trying to better their yard, then we will better the breed. But when we just talk about people trying to better the breed, then that means you're all over the place and you're chasing what's hype and all that other stuff. Better your yard. Start there, and then we will all eventually better the breed. But nobody can better the breed by themselves, and nobody can better the breed unless you're bettering your yard. It all starts within your yard. Let's see. Belinda said the standard should be treated as such. I'm seeing splayed feet, weak pasterns so bad they look like they're walking on their elbows. I know. Or stifles so stiff the knee starts popping out. I know. I see it. And this breed has been handled so backwards before a lot of us got into it that we're still dealing with flaws that should have been bred out 10 years ago. But while the breed had flaws, it was winning championship titles and grand championship titles. So people are ignoring a lot of those things. So we're still all kind of starting from scratch. I think we have a general look, but we're still all starting from scratch. And what makes it difficult, I come from a background where you breed for temperament. The purpose came with it. So now you're focused on temperament and the drives that make up temperament and the thresholds that make up those drives that make up temperament. Then success over failures in performance govern your structure. And then after that, you did, your health testing and things like that. But you got the overall breed and temperament first, and then you moved on into, health testing and things like that. In this case, we're breeding so much into it. Like, one issue with health testing is if you don't have the structure right, what good is it to breed a bully that passes the health test with flying colors, but he doesn't have breed type, So some of the health testing, religious people might not like this when I say it, but to me, you need to be getting your temperament down, getting your structure down, keeping the best of those dogs, keeping the papers on the dogs that were not the best, sell them out as pet home dogs. And then when you start getting when you get your temperament in, I got it now. I can, not only do I have it, it's consistent in my yard, and now I can start focusing on different line breedings to maintain my temperament, but also to correct some of the structure issues I'm seeing. When you start getting to that phase, and you've got, I'd say, two flaws. At that point, to me, that's when you want to start getting heavy into your health testing, so that as you're fixing the structure issues and getting the bully breed type, now you are also getting into the health issues of the dog. And I think if we looked at that, so you go temperament, and then as you're getting the temperament consistent, you start focusing on structure. And then as you're getting the structure consistent, you've locked in temperament. Now you're focused on your health or whatever issues you put as a priority. And then as you got the structure locked in, you move on to this other thing. So that is all breeding is. It's a journey from one priority to getting it, then locking it in at the same time as you're moving on to this next priority. And that's all breeding is, putting those puzzle pieces together just like that. So whatever you think you need, and don't think you, and whatever you need to have an idea. People say, fuck your vision. You shouldn't have a vision. It's all about the breed standard. No, because the standard gives you room to have your own creativity. So when you're looking at temperament, you need to know what you want your dog to do in various situations. And then you need to purchase the dogs that are going to support that. You need to test those dogs to make sure you got the pups that support that. And then you need to start doing your breedings accordingly. And then once you've gotten it consistent and you know you can do it without worry, you move on to the next priority. And as you're gradually moving on to the next priority, you're locking in the previous priority that you had already set. Let's see, Belinda said, depending on how much bulldog or certain mastiff will determine if that slight high rear or roachback is natural to the bulldogs or mastiff as most work from their rear. Exactly. That is 100% true. The Chesapeake Bay Retriever is a perfect example. They have a high rear because they use their rear to power through broken ice and things when they're swimming. So these things do. The Mastiff is typically bred for guardianship amongst men. So they are basically protecting whatever it is from men. So if a Mastiff has a slight high rear, you want him to be able to raise up and take on that man with a strong front, which tends to be a slightly shorter. The Mastiff also walks with its rear with his back legs stepping more forward underneath his body than, let's say, your golden retriever or your German shepherd. So a lot of these high rear situations do come from the breed and were a trait that made the breed able to do what it was doing. But like Belinda said, we have to pay attention now because we're not breeding the Mastiff. We're not breeding the Bulldog. We're not breeding the Pit Bull. We're not breeding the Amstaff. We're breeding the Bully. And the Bully does not want certain traits from the Bulldog or the Mastiff or the Amstaff, because then it doesn't allow the Bully to be its own breed. So we have to pay attention to those things. All about them dollar signs. Yes, this game has become a hustle. Belinda say exactly, better your yard. That's where it starts. You better your yard, then the dogs and the breed will come. Top of the class Bully said, can I breed half brother, half sister together, then breed their offspring to granddad? Okay, so I personally don't believe you should do any line breeding until you have one. The dogs in your yard should have traits that you were looking for, temperamentally and aesthetically. When you've gotten those traits, and then you're able to watch these dogs, they're a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and you see what you're getting out of these dogs, you now start wanting to match traits to put the best dogs to the best dogs. So for instance, you've got a male that you know you want to breed. You've got 2 females that you know you want to breed, and then you want to breed that male to both of those females. You are now then going to breed the offspring from those females, the best of those offspring, based off traits to each other, so that they are now half brother, half sister. That is a line breeding. Half sister to half brother to half sister is a close line breeding, but it's a line breeding because they share the same father. You want to make sure that the negatives about your male aren't showing up in those 2 dogs. Then you breed them together. And now all of a sudden you're saying, can I breed that back to that male, making it 3 times whoever that male is in the pedigree. Before I would breed grandfather to granddaughter, which is a close line breeding, I would make sure that they're close to perfection. I would make sure that I do not have any major flaws. And when I say flaws, I'm not talking about the show ring. I'm talking about flaws as far as what you consider a flaw in your yard. In my yard, laziness would be a flaw. So I would make sure that I don't have more than 2 flaws before I did that line breeding. And the reason I say that is you can use line breeding to fix flaws. You can't use inbreeding to fix issues. So before I do a close line breeding, I want to make sure I've only got 1 to 2 flaws before I go into that breeding. If I've got 3 flaws for my yard, what I consider to be my yard, I wouldn't do a line breeding. I would continue the scatter breeding, and scatter breeding is not a negative thing as long as the traits are matching. The traits that you're looking for are matching, and the traits that you don't want are not matching. Then you should be good. So when it comes to, I would not do a grandfather to granddaughter, to answer your question, unless I know what it is I'm looking for, and there's only 2 flaws that are preventing, 1 to 2 flaws that are preventing me from getting it, and those flaws are not major. WKR said, why does a lot of these bully breeders like to drop names that are so far down in the pedigree? Because it's a hustle. When you get to your 5th generation, I might have the percentages wrong, but I want to say your 5th generation is like 6% of the dog in front of you. That means the dog that they're hyping up is about 6% of the dogs in front of you. Now, here's another thing. Let's say that dog, let's say it's 2 times that dog. That's cool. But 2, 3, 10 times that dog, and it's 5 generations and back, it's only worth 5%. So when you're studying these dogs and they're hyping up the pedigree, look at those pedigrees, and if the names they're bragging about aren't in the first 3 generations, chances are you're not getting those traits. especially if it's not from a bloodline. And most of these dogs aren't bloodline, they're hyped up dogs. So chances are you're not getting those traits unless those breeders were matching traits perfectly. Dog, I just looked at my Centrum multivitamins. So Centrum is a popular dog in the dog community because of his big head and his marketing. That's cool as long as he went to all dogs that have big heads in your pedigree. But if he's going to dogs that have smaller heads, and Centrum is not the product of a bloodline, meaning that he's the product of line breeding and inbreeding a family of dogs for at least 5 generations, and more than likely 7 to 10 generations, then you're not getting Centrum's traits. You're just getting the traits of the dogs that are in there. See what I'm saying? So you have to really think about that when it comes to looking at these pedigrees. If those dogs are being bragged about but aren't in the first 5 generations, or you don't see the traits from those dogs moving through the generations, then the hyped names are useless. And that, again, is part of the hustle. Melinda said you have to know how to balance them traits to have a well-structured bully. Exactly. And we got into our dogs. We knew that every dog that hit our yard, we wanted to not be related to any other dogs that came into our yard. So our breeding program was based off of scatter breeding, but it's based off of similar traits that we're looking for, both in aesthetics and in temperament. Let's see here. Says Willow will be bred to her uncle, but off completely different bred mom. Bam. And then I will have to go out a couple of times before I come back in. Exactly. You have a strategy set up to make sure that you are keeping some of what you want, but getting out there, getting the things you need, so that then you can take the best out of that and go back to what it is that you're keeping. And that's what this breeding is all about. That's all it is about. And that's all it ever will be about, is matching traits that you like to get the dogs that you want and the end result. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the comments and see that looks like we're up to date. Let's see. Michaela said, Hugh Hefner made my ex who beat, what? I don't know what that's about, Michaela. I got to start reading this before I start speaking. You even got my wife giggling. I'm glad I didn't click on that to make it show on the screen. I don't know what that's about. If I'm reading that wrong, let me know, Michaela. If I'm reading it right, I definitely don't mean to giggle, but I don't know. This might be the wrong place for that. And I do not do consultation on those type of issues. You got me sweating now. I do not do consultation. I just deal strictly with dogs. Let's say Greg Black said, I agree, better your yard with every breeding. There you go. I just heard about the roachback-ish. See it now that I know where it comes from, explains the slight easty-westy also. Yes. Now, another thing, easty-westy can come from posture. I'll give you a perfect example. My Jack Russell, for some reason, right around 9 years old, not only did her ears start standing up gradually, but she started sitting and standing with easty-westy. Actually, I don't think she stood with it. No, she did. She would stand with easty-west. I want to say she even stood with it. Now, when she started walking, it wasn't there. But this didn't start until she was 8, 9 years old. Now, she was a working dog. She could have had some injuries that started causing it. I don't know. But I don't know. But she did start. Her ears started standing up. So if you look on my page, on my personal profile, and you scroll around till you see my Jack Russell, right around 9 years old, her ears are standing straight up. Whereas before that, her ears folded over like a Jack Russell's are supposed to. But she also started getting easty-westy. And we didn't notice it until I started, paying attention to it. But it didn't start till around 8, 9 years old. Braxton said, later, bro, I got to go do my gaming live. Hey, I keep checking you out. Every now and then I do try to check it out. But check out Braxton O'Neill's. He does his gaming lives. He promotes it on Facebook. Braxton O'Neill is part of DDK9. He has some badass dogs, does a lot of work with them. But he does have a gaming thing he's doing. And I need to hit you up because my son wants to kind of get into that. He's got one buddy that's into it. So I might need to hit you up and ask you some questions about that because he is looking at pointers. But check Braxton O'Neill. He does promote his gaming, and he just goes online and he games, talking shit and battling at whatever game he's playing at the time. Let's see. Dion, what's up, man? Thanks for joining in. While game 6 is out. I know. That's why I got to go check that out now. But let's see. I want to make sure I get everybody's questions and avoid the things that come out of nowhere. It looks like we got that. So to sum it all up, let's see here. I try and I've spent hours studying and years of trial and error and success to heart to there you go. And see, that's what a lot of this is about. Let's see. Ashley Hernan said, what up, Daryl? Just getting tuned in. You're coming in kind of late because I'm getting ready to get off, but thanks for tuning in. You can always go back and watch it. It won't be deleted. That's what this is all about. A lot of bully breeders will try to, he bred these type of dogs or she bred these type of dogs. So they don't really know what's going on. This is all simple. It's all very simple. When you got experience, the hardest thing to breed for is work and temperament. When you got people that could do that, the puzzle pieces that we see with our eye, that's not a problem. You just see what you need and you breed it to it and you pick the pup or the dogs that represent that breeding the best. And you continue your breedings. That's the easiest part of this game. So a lot of you can hang up from the bully community, jump in a whole nother working dog community, talk to them about breeding, and learn more about your yard with bullies more than you'll ever learn in the bully community. Trust me when I say that. Let's see. Brian Trammell said, is there a workout or is there anything to help roach back besides breeding out of it? Yes, but the work is only gradual. If you have high rear dips in the back. Now, this is part of you know what? This is the live, so we can do it all for free. So, roach back, the dip in the back. The only way you can help that, the appearance of it, is by exercising that back. Long walks at a slightly high pace will help you build the back. Walking uphill at a slightly faster pace than your normal walk will help you build the back. Walking downhill, and you don't need an actual hill. You can just use slope streets and things like that. Going downhill at a slightly slower pace will help you build the back. Swimming will help you build the back. Spring pole, making sure that the dog's rear is on the ground, the rear feet are on the ground while the front end is up and the dog is pulling and yanking and backing up and pulling, will help you build the back. These dogs are too big to let them hang. Again, I repeat, I do have a video where you see Cardi Bull hanging from the spring pole. That was just that day because me and my son were talking about it. Happened to be filming. I posted it. But for the most part, she actually, since then, Cardi Bull never hangs from the spring pole. But these are all things that will help you build up the muscle in the back that will assist with the roach back. You are still going to have to breed away from it, okay? Just like there's things you can do to help with weak pastures, but you still have to breed away from it. Let's see. Ashley said, as always, good content. Thank you very much. Mr. J said, a lot of people can't actually see it, though. I don't know if you're talking about temperament or if you're talking about the flaws, and that's what kennel blindness is. When you can't see the flaws in your yard, whether they be temperamental or whether they be aesthetic, that is kennel blindness. When you can't read the breed standard and tell that your dog doesn't match it, whether it be temperament or whether it be aesthetics, that is kennel blindness. So a lot of people like to point out kennel blindness being what somebody may not see or may not be acknowledging when that person is looking at a high rear, but yet at the same time, that person is guilty of it when it comes to temperament. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and get off of here. We 30 minutes over. And thank you all for joining in. Betsy said, yes, I do counseling on conditioning, on exercise, on conditioning regimens, which is always based off of whatever your purpose is. And so it's an event. And if you have a time period that you have, then the conditioning regimen is based off of that. I always advise, if you want to come to me for conditioning, I can give you a very good regimen at a month. My best regimen is 2 months, because then you get to diet down at a proper time before the event comes up. And then depending on the event, it may not have a die down period, or that die down period is a month before the event. It might be a week before the event. So it just depends on what it is. I also do obedience that comes with a certain amount of sessions. I do behavior, which comes with a certain amount of sessions. And then if we're talking about in-depth breeding, where we get into your pedigree, we look at the dogs in your pedigree, and we do our specific homework on it, then that is also counseling that we do. And understand that even when it comes to breeding, it's still, we need to know whatever it is your purpose. If your purpose is the show ring, then we will do the homework that get you to that. And but we will always discuss it before the actual counseling phase starts, so that you get to decide whether it is you want to seek me for, whatever that is. But yeah, so conditioning, exercise regimens to help fix certain things, just basic dog husbandry when it comes to allergies, building the immune system, the best diet for your dog based off what it is you plan on doing for your dog, and then breeding kind of falls in line with that. And then I also do behavior and obedience. My time is limited now, because as I get into behavioral obedience, there are people that I'll be dealing with face to face. But yes, I will do that with you, and it requires video. Some of it, when it comes to, I also do perimeter protection conditioning, which is mental conditioning. For it, I don't do protection and bite work over phone or over Facebook or Messenger or anything like that. To me, that is just too, that's too much of a gamble. And I don't want to put anybody in the wrong situations, or there, I'm not there. But also understand, when it comes to most of these things, dealing with me, you might, especially with obedience training, and especially with behavior training, there are going to be times where I need to see you, not just your dog, and you might need a third person that is filming. So keep that in mind, unless you got a good setup. But you know, there are errors we make. You're doing everything I said, but your foot placement is incorrect, or your shoulders are faced the wrong direction, and therefore you're throwing your dog off. So I need to be able to see you along with your dog. Let's see, most conditioning should be about 6 weeks prior to whatever you need. I agree, 6 weeks. Some people get caught in a rut where they only got 4 weeks. I prefer, whether it's fighting for humans, or whether it's some type of event or sport event that you're doing for your dog, I prefer 2 months. That way we can build into it, let it climax, and then figure out where we want it to die down. And then that way your dog is still going through the basics, but then also well rested, as far as not only mentally, but also as far as physically, its muscles, its lungs, everything needs to be rested, because even the lungs run out of stamina, not just air. So other than that, and I think that's about it. And we are out. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll be back here next Tuesday. Feel free to hit me up on any questions that you have. And we are out. I need some